Welcome to Asenso Tayo Leaders, where we bring you real stories from leaders like you so you can lead with more clarity, direction, and confidence. Hello, Michael Beck. How are you?
I am very well. Maria, how are you today?
I'm great. Another week, and we have been able to smash a lot of work for the past 2 weeks. So I'm feeling great this time. It's high time that we get into the podcast side of things now.
I know we've had a little bit of a break, but it's so like this week, you and I were like, let's get back in the saddle.
Yeah.
And that's involved listening to episodes and talking about them and planning them. And I'm super pumped for what's to come. We've got so many cool guests coming up. And yeah, I'm feeling really, really excited about the podcast right now.
Yeah. And I mentioned too, I have to contain my feelings, Becky. That's how excited I am for what's to come.
Well, I think that's a good segue into today's episode, right?
Yes. So this is a very special episode, and I'm laughing because I keep going back to the image of my face, always smiling and being very kilig every time this guest would talk about her experience and all. Do you remember that?
Oh, I remember. That's the bit that I've been most excited to re-listen to. If you are listening to this episode, I'll let Maria introduce our wonderful guest in a sec. But if you're listening to this one, you're not going to hear Maria that much. And that's because she was so starstruck. She was actually like fangirling really, really hard. And I mean, if you wait around to the end, you actually hear that she fesses up. But if you're going to watch the video of this, and I encourage you to, just have a look into Maria's eyes. Look at the goofy grin on her face the whole episode. She is completely in love with our guest, and it is so funny to watch. But I think that was the first time that you completely fangirled the whole time, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I could not contain myself and I could not speak because I was like an audience that time. I felt like, oh, I want to listen. Like, what's next? What's the cheesy part? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
oh,
It's when
it's
you have those
crazy.
moments where you're like, oh, that's right. I'm hosting this podcast. I better say
Exactly.
something. So
If we were seated beside each other, you would have slapped me and like, what are you doing?
if it was a movie set, I would have called cut and said, Maria, you're acting. Don't forget to act. But you know what? It doesn't matter because you did ask some great questions. And yeah, one of the best things with our guest today is that she said at the end how much fun she had and how much she loved the experience, which is always great. You want it to be just as rewarding for them as it is for us. And it was nice to know that they had as much fun as we did too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So why don't you tell everyone who we had the pleasure of interviewing in this very special episode?
Yes. So in this episode, we welcome an incredible Filipina whose story and passion and energy are just so inspiring. And that's why I've been fangirling all along, guys. I tell you, you would not want to miss this episode. In the conversation, we spoke about, the Filipino culture, Filipinas specifically, and how we are starting to evolve. And this lady is actually a living evidence of the kind of quality of a Filipina we are, and as leaders as well, and how, yes, we can be reserved, but there's power to that as well, and how we can bloom, and how in the global setup, we actually can be really great leaders, executors, and things like that. And we have so many creative, juices as well that we never even thought that we have. I think this also really reflects a lot about, in the general, nutshell, the Filipino community of uplifting. Because our guest, actually, even though she has moved to a global setup in the US, she brings with her opportunities for fellow Filipinos and Filipinas as well, which is amazing to hear. And Baki, I'm sure there's also a lot of things that you were very amazed about with our special guest.
Something that blew me away, because I think the picture we're painting here is like, it's just like chit chat with a friend. But seriously, like, to highlight how much of a big hitter that our special guest is, she got voted one of the most, inverted commas, influential Filipinas in the world. So we're not just talking about some small, friendly guest here. This is someone who has achieved an enormous amount, has been globally recognized for that. You'll hear through the conversation so many experiences, so much success, so many cool stories, but also someone who, as they've grown into their career, have decided that they don't necessarily have to prove anything to anyone now. And so have taken the opportunity to pay those gifts forward. And you'll hear about this special guest's Aya Alliance, which might be a spoiler about who we're interviewing, but doing so much good in the world to not just build great businesses, but also take what she's learned and experienced and pay it forward. She does a great job of that in the interview as well, but she's definitely out there in the world making it a much better place for business people, for females, for Filipinos and Filipinas. She is someone who is literally making her corner of the world a better place, which is something that we hold near and dear to our hearts of Five Elks. So she is values aligned to the extreme. She's the exact type of person that we love working with and hanging out with. And yeah, we're so lucky that we got the opportunity to hang out with her. And most importantly, I feel grateful that our wonderful audience get that opportunity now as well.
Yes, absolutely. And without further ado, we hope you'll enjoy our conversation with none other than Aya Shlachter, CEO of MGS Global.
Welcome to the Asenso Tayo Leaders podcast. And today we are joined by Aya Shlachter, a mum, entrepreneur, podcast host, author, and speaker. Aya is also the CEO of MGS Global Group, an architectural support services firm working with hundreds of practices all over the world. For nearly 20 years, Aya has been building teams and scaling companies across the globe, and she is now leading the charge in how AI is changing the way we work. She's been named as one of Cleveland's Women of Influence, and last year was recognized as one of the most influential Filipinas in the world by the Filipinas Women's Network. I also hear from a reliable source that she is obsessed with cold plunges. I really hope that this episode is more comfortable for you, Aya, than an ice bath, but would you please welcome to the Asenso Tayo Leaders podcast, Aya.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, guys. Nice to be here.
Now, straight off the bat, I can't say a phrase like one of the most influential Filipinas in the world and not dig deeper on that. So before we get stuck in, can you just please put everyone out of their misery? Please tell us, what is that accolade all about and how did it come about?
The Filipino Women's Network is a global organization based in San Francisco. This is a very interesting story. The founder, when she moved to San Francisco, maybe in the early 90s, when she Googled Filipina, made-to-order brides came out. And in the 1990s, the Filipinos were made-to-order brides. I don't know if you know what that is, Michael, but there were pen pals, and then Americans and all the foreigners would write to their pen pals and then come to the US, and then they get married. So the goal of Marilyn Mondejar was to change the narrative in Google and to highlight Filipinos and not made-to-order brides, but Filipinos that are entrepreneurs, career professionals, and C-suite executives. That was her goal.
Wow.
So she made a movement to change the narrative online. And so now it's grown to, I think there are around 33 countries.
Wow.
And there are different categories. There's a CEO category, like career professionals, people in the medical field. So it was a very intense selection process. Like, you need to be nominated. So 2 people nominated me, but then I had to fill out 90 questions, had to do a video, had to show all my finances. Since I'm the CEO, right? I have to open my books.
Okay.
And then I had an interview with like 5 people that was really intense. And then I had to do a global pitch. And so, yeah, it was like a 3-month process. And I think there were only 2 CEOs in the world that were selected. But there are a lot of people, since Filipinos are not really known as entrepreneurs, there are a lot of categories like in the health space. Like a lot of my fellow winners, there were 19 of us, but only 2 CEOs. A lot of them are administrators, presidents of not banks, of hospitals, in the US. Because again, Filipinos are known to be nurses and career professionals. One of the persons there was a COO of Charles Schwab. It was very intense. So yeah, I was selected as one of the CEO pioneers in AI and architecture.
Wow. I think
I
Wow.
think
so.
it was harder than and growing my business, to be honest. I'm like, man, running my firm is easier than getting in. Yeah.
You can judge the quality of an award by its application process. It's pretty obvious which ones are, that they're kind of built with integrity and that there's a real purpose behind it versus the simple ones to apply for that are often just money making. So it probably speaks to the quality of what they're trying to create there, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, opening your books and showing all your,
Yeah, that's
that's
crazy.
Yeah.
my husband doesn't know how much I make. No, just kidding. I won't open my books. No, he does. He does. But you know what I'm saying, right? It's
Yeah.
intense.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you all learnt things about your finances through that process.
Exactly. Plus, they
Yeah.
need to legitimize you as a CEO, right? Because people can just bullshit. They need to see the numbers. So, yeah, that was probably the most uncomfortable, but I made it.
Yeah. And when
Yeah.
you after since you've won, like, has anything changed? Does it open doors? Does it change the way people introduce you on podcasts the way it has with us?
Actually, it's very humbling because when you have to have a global pitch or a global initiative to give back, the award is actually not just prestigious, but a working award. So I have
Mhm.
to give back to the community. So I have a global project called the Aya Alliance, and it's for to help female architects scale their businesses from 250,000 to a million. But it's not
Wow.
just Filipinas, but women architecture firms. And Aya stands for Amplify Your Ambition because a lot
Oh,
of
I love that.
Filipinos and women in general don't, we're
Mm-hmm.
very shy, especially Filipinas.
Yeah.
When people compliment you, you'll just say, "No, I'm not that smart." Oh, no,
Mm.
we should learn how to receive and also amplify our ambition. So I'm trying to build a community called the Aya Alliance. We're launching next month. So it's for female. It was supposed to be for Filipinas. And I'm like, well, if I have Filipina architects, I'll get like 10 people because like Filipinos are nurses and, not
Yeah.
that many architects globally. So I
Mm-hmm.
opened it up to all women architects. And Filipinas are so shy. We never, we don't know how to receive in
Yeah.
general
Very
and women in
reserved.
general. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I want to change that narrative and be bold, build quietly and lead boldly. We don't have to flaunt, stealth mode is good, but then you just have to, know what you want, right? And ask for what you deserve as a
Mm-hmm.
woman.
We've heard a lot about you from our CEO. You mentioned you're really great friends with Danielle, but
Yeah.
some of our audience may not be familiar with your humble beginnings and your story, from scratch. And I'm sure, for our Filipino audience, like it would be so fulfilling and inspiring to hear from a fellow Filipina and also, I believe, Cebuana. So would you so kindly tell us about, your career and how you got there?
When I was young, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was very creative, right? So I thought I was going to be a fashion designer. I painted a lot. I like to cook. I wasn't really like cerebral smart, but I was a very creative person. And up to my high school, my last day of high school, I didn't even know what I wanted.
Mm.
And my dad was like, "Hey, you need to apply for college. What are you going to do?" I'm like, "I don't know, art school." And dad was like, "Why don't you just do architecture? Because that's the foundation of all art." So I went to San Carlos like a day
Yeah.
before. San Carlos is a university here in Cebu.
Okay.
Like 2 days before the enrollment started, and I applied. I got in, and so I started architecture school. And I spent 2 weeks there,
Yeah.
and then our family moved to Manila, and then spent 2 years in University of Santo Tomas, right? So but then I moved to the US in when I was 19 to continue my studies in architecture in NJIT. It's a state school, and I was by myself, it was without my family.
Oh, wow.
So my sister was there. We went to school in the US, and that's how it started. And then after that I got a job, you know working quietly with different firms, very shy Filipina. I barely talked.
Mm-hmm.
Filipinos are known to work very hard. I don't know if you have, and our work ethic is really like head down and you'll work overtime. You're underpaid. Architects promote the culture of burnout. So the more you work,
Mm.
people brag about it. So
Mm.
that
Mm.
was it until I worked in this firm in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I worked for like 36 hours. I didn't go home because we were doing this General Motors expo in 2020. And when I finished the project, I gave my drawings to my boss. And, like again, head down, I don't complain. I gave the drawings to my boss and said, hey, we finished it in 36 hours. I slept on the couch or on the floor and I sneezed, right? And then he's like, don't get the drawings dirty. That's the only thing he said. He didn't thank me, and I'm like, I will never be that kind of a boss, So I decided to start my own firm, at some point and become an architect. I worked for different companies. And then when I gave birth to my daughter, we were living in New York City. I decided to take a break from work and start doing, studying for my architectural licensing exams. We have to do 9 exams, right? But my former clients or my former bosses didn't want me, they kept on waiting for me to come back. So one client came and said, hey, can you do documentation for us? So I said, fine, I'll do documentation. And another person came for documentation. So I did documentation in 2008. And then I got a big opportunity to work for one of the biggest retailers, Coach, the Coach bag company.
Ah, yeah, right.
I'm like breastfeeding in my, sorry, can I say that?
Yeah. Say
Bedroom.
whatever you want. Safe place.
And he's like, hey, can you help us? We're doing a rollout. A rollout is like, when you roll out a lot of stores, we need your help. We're so desperate. I'm like, sure. So I worked on that. So I finally hired a nanny because I can't, I can't work on all these documents.
Multitask. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh my God, this is so easy. And I'm getting paid per project. I'm used to doing huge buildings and like apartment buildings. And this is like a store in the mall, the mall store where there's like a Coach fit out. And I just kept on asking for more, give me more work because it's so easy. It was good money. And then later on, I'm like, I hired my friends at the nights and weekends. So we were doing so many jobs from my apartment. And Coach design director was like, how are you doing all this? I'm like, well, you need work to be done. So I built my team in my apartment. Nights and weekends, breastfeeding my daughter, eating pizza. And that's the beginning. I started becoming a retail specialist. I think we did around 300 stores in 6 months with 4 people in my apartment.
Oh, wow.
With a baby.
Yeah.
And
So that's how it started. And then I started to take my exam and I failed. And then I'm like trying to take the exam, but the clients kept on piling up. And I'm like, maybe this is a sign that I should just serve architects.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it started. And then Michael Kors became a client. I've done over 4,000 stores for them.
Oh, wow.
I've been working with them since 2010 until now, where I'm still their biggest supplier of architecture production globally. So I started in the retail space. Like, it's wild. I didn't even think this was going to happen. I met Michael Kors in a party in New York, and then on running, Roger Federer is a client.
Oh,
So they sent me to Switzerland to train with Roger Federer in Switzerland. I mean, not with him, but the team on shoes, on Cloud. Are you familiar with those shoes?
Yes, I
Everybody
am.
has them.
Yeah.
The one. So I went there. They sent me to Switzerland, to Zurich in their headquarters to get trained. It happened to be a bank holiday, and in the cafeteria was Roger Federer. And I'm like, I'm gonna say hi, and the staff were like, no, don't say hi. I'm like, well, if he says he won't take a photo with me, at least I tried. And so I approached him and said, hey, I'm all the way from the US. I'm your store expansion team there. Can I take a photo? And he said yes. So yeah. So my friend, when I posted it on social, he asked me if I was in a wax museum.
Madame Tussauds.
Anyway, yeah, that's how I started, and we've grown significantly.
I love hearing the path of an entrepreneur, but I love the origin story as well. I'm trying to figure it out. Was it that you would have been happy to be an employee if that boss had treated you better and you'd felt more respected? And was it purely one of those like, I can do this better than them and I'm going to show them that I can? Or was there always an inevitability about you being an entrepreneur? Like you said, you're a creative kid. Were you always going to run a business? It was just a matter
absolutely.
of when?
I was going to pay my dues and work for 5 years
Okay.
and then figure it out, whatever business it may be. So yeah, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I knew it was going to be difficult. I knew I was going to be hungry, and I knew I was going to really not have money, right? Like when I started doing my own thing, my husband gave me like $5 a day allowance. Like I had like maybe $40 a week of budget because we were living in New York City with a kid.
Oh,
Mm.
So
wow.
we were living on a super tight budget.
Yeah.
So my food budget was $5 a day, just to go to a cafe. But New
Mhm.
York City is so amazing because there's a lot of free stuff.
Mm.
So, when you join a gym in New York City, it's like 1 week free, right? And if you
Yeah.
don't like it, if you like it, you sign up. And there are like freaking 50 gyms in the city. So I
So
just
you
go to
go to
all the
each?
gyms.
Oh,
Yes,
wow. Okay.
all the boxing gyms and all the
Oh,
things. I'm
wow.
like, I can get by 5 days here. I move on to the next five. Do you know? So that's how I survived, because,
Mm.
and then the yoga
Mm.
studios, like 30 yoga studios, 1 week free, boom, there. And then there's so many free events in Central Park,
Mhm.
so I did all that,
Very Filipina kind of way.
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Resourceful. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Problem
So I
solving.
knew, I mean, my parents are entrepreneurs, so I knew it was not an
Mhm.
easy path. It's
Mhm.
kind of feast or famine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So what was it, the influence of your parents that made you know that you wanted to start a business? Because that had been
absolutely.
modeled to you as a kid?
Yeah, because they struggled when we were growing up. Like my dad was a lawyer. He won this major account as a, big project, and he built this massive house. But we only lived in half the house because he ran out of money. So we only lived half of the house, and then in the first floor was not finished. So my mom put a bakery there. So she had a bakery, and my dad had a law firm, and
Oh,
we made it work. Eventually, they became really successful, and I was there when they were really struggling. But then the rewards of their hard work was exponential, right? I'm
Mm.
like, oh, you can really make a lot of money if you really have, if you see business as a long game,
mm,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I was there when they struggled, like
mm,
when I only had like, two uniforms, like like
Mhm.
things like that. We were
yep.
on a
Mhm.
budget all the time. Yeah, but when they succeeded, I'm like, this is the life I want, right? Yeah.
Nice.
And
And
they
yeah,
employed so many people. My mom had like she eventually had a jewelry manufacturing firm, and she employed
Mhm.
around 300 women in her jewelry store. I mean, she exported jewelry to the
mm,
US.
mm.
Again, started as, how she started? All the flour from the bread, because, like the bread business is not profitable. So she started making jewelry made out of flour, and her
What?
her company
What?
was called Pan Arts. Pan is bread, but it's all arts. So the flour, she used it to make jewelry, and then
Mm.
she grew the company to 300 at the peak. I mean, I was traveling with her all over Europe, Japan, Hong
Mm.
Kong, doing trade shows. Like from not being able to go to dim sum break to like her jet setting around the world. I mean, it's wild. And I'm like, I want to be like that. And she only employed
Wow.
women. Yeah, I worked with her too when I was 12, 13. I already knew what a Gantt chart was at 12 and 13.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, it's really crazy, but I know it's hard.
Yeah. But I suppose when you can see that the hard work pays off, when you that's modeled to you, when you can understand that struggle isn't forever and that, there's lessons and there's joy in that process, it probably made that, $5 a day food seem like something you're like, oh, this is a challenge. This is fun. I can survive this. Like it was probably
Mm.
really helped you lose your training wheels as an entrepreneur yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually good to be hungry so you don't take things for granted. You're
Mhm.
resourceful, you know how to budget. I never spent that money. I only spent that money in the weekends to go out, right?
Mm,
We had a grocery budget, but things like that. It was tight.
mm.
I mean, yeah.
As I was preparing for this episode, I was listening to a couple of interviews with you. And anyway, I was
Mhm.
talking to my wife and I was describing you. And we were talking about like, what's the difference between a CEO and a founder and an entrepreneur? Like, you hear the word entrepreneur a lot. And where me and my wife settled was that an entrepreneur is someone who opens multiple businesses and sometimes
Mhm.
at the same time. Like it implies this track record. Anyway, I just want to demonstrate to you how much of an entrepreneur you are. Because one of the episodes I was listening to was like every 5 minutes, I learned about a new business that you'd started at some point. Could I put you on the spot, and could you just list off some of the businesses you've started over the years? It doesn't have to be the big ones either, but big and small. What are some of the businesses that you have since started since those humble days in the half law firm, half bakery?
So in 2008, right, I was living in New York City. I decided to move back to the Philippines with my daughter and build a team in Cebu for Coach. They were my biggest clients. And it was harder to raise a kid in New York City. So I'm like, yes, I'm going back in 2008. I'm going to build an outsourcing team. I did. And then the economy crashed. So now my husband and I and my daughter, we're now living in my parents' basement, and like we ran out of savings, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? So I worked with my brother. We started this company called Pixel Fixers. We did wedding albums for Koreans, honeymoon wedding albums. I did that. We were gonna go to the mall and start like a nail business, the printing business with the
Nail
nails.
art kind of thing.
Yeah, nail art.
Yeah.
Everything. I just needed to survive. I'm like, I brought my American husband to the Philippines, and now it's such an imposter. Like we're living in my parents' basement with a child and no money, and we're going through all of our savings. So I'm like, what other businesses can I do? Right? We also did Shoot.edit. It's like a photo editing business for photographers, and I was making 10 cents per photo, and we had to do like 300 photos. It wasn't a lot, right? And so I'm like, oh, everybody loves chocolate. No, this was 2 years of trying different businesses. Everything flopped. And then 2 years later, I gave birth to my son. It's like every time I give birth, I start a new business, right? Like who does that?
Yeah, it sounds like a real trait. Yeah, you give birth to two things, a baby and a business.
Yeah. And so the next time I gave birth to my son, and I was so bored. I'm like, you know what? I want to have a chocolate cafe called Tablea. And it's gonna be this cool, because Tablea chocolate is a local delicacy, and they just serve it in the markets, in the wet markets. I'm like, I want to make Tablea accessible to everyone, and I want to make it like a Starbucks, right? So I started Tablea again in the basement while breastfeeding my son and making all these recipes. I was inspired by my mom's recipe. Every New Year, she made the best chocolate. And I'm like, this is the basis of my concept. I don't know if you know, we have it in JY, we have it in Bonifacio. It's called Tablea Chocolate Cafe. And I went to
I
all the
love
I
it.
designed all the kiosks, and I went to all the malls to show my concept and to do food tasting. Nobody took me because they didn't know who I was until there was a mall in the Philippines called Cybergate. It's across the hospital, Chongwa. And I went and I said, hey, can you please give me a spot? And that just exploded. Like Tablea started from a kiosk in Cybergate. I had chocolate con churros. I had Mexican chocolate, sipping chocolate, black chocolate, milk chocolate, iced chocolate, everything chocolate.
Yeah.
And that really blew up, and people wanted to franchise. We grew that to 6 branches in 3 years.
Oh, wow. And this is the
And then,
native chocolate, right? Where
yeah,
it
yeah,
came from.
yeah,
All of
native
it.
chocolate. Yeah. And then the funny thing is, well, it's not that funny. The retail business started picking up the architecture business. So a lot of people from Coach got laid off during 2008, and Michael Kors took them. And so my contacts from Coach are now in Michael Kors. So they asked me to do work. So now I'm running two businesses, right? Like the Tablea business that I'm every day going to the cafes, checking the cake displays, and then at night I'm working on Michael Kors in the same store as my commissary. It's like ridiculous. With the kids, they come to visit me, and I was really hustling, right? So the architecture business started to pick up, and then the cafe business, and yeah, I co-founded the cafe with my mom. It was her recipe. It was really, my brainchild and yeah, that's my second business.
Yeah, and that tablea is what overseas Filipino workers would try to grab before they
Yeah,
go back to US.
you should try it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Becky,
No,
I'll
it
get you
it
some.
blew up so much that I got franchise opportunities in Singapore, Canada, Hong Kong, Russia. I'm just one person. I
Yep.
really can't do it. So I
Yeah.
focused more on the architecture business because that was really my area of expertise, and it had more money. and then now I had a family to support. So that was my second successful business that now my brother is taking care of, right? It's a family business with my brother as now head, and I just, I'm part owner now. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my
It
God.
seems to be such a challenge I see in entrepreneurs is that their brain is constantly tuned into opportunities, and there's so much about problem solving, seeing these gaps and these problems that you know that you have the skills and passion to solve. But then there's also that idea of honing your focus and having more of an impact in one direction rather than spreading yourself too thin. How do you manage that, I don't know, that tussle between wanting to try new things and solve new problems versus focusing on one problem for long enough so you can solve it properly?
I still struggle with it. My mom gave me the best idea ever because I was so stressed. My mom was like, "What is the only thing you can do?" When I was, like as a mom, what is the only thing you can do? When I had my son, he's like, "Aya, the only thing you could find the thing that you can do in your business, right? Like when I was nursing my son, the only thing you can do and no one can do is breastfeed your child. So find that one thing in your business that only you can do, and everything else you can delegate. So that's how I think about it. When I'm super overwhelmed, I'm like, what is the thing that only I can do, and delegate the rest. So right now, that's how I'm trying to manage my life. Like, and even I have now a COO. When he sees my to-do list, he'll say, "Throw that out."
There's
And
only
it's
one
like,
thing here we need you to do. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to be very intentional about how I spend my time, and I'm very busy. And now that I just turned 50 last 3 months ago.
Oh, happy birthday.
Wow.
Yeah,
Happy
and so now I
birthday.
really want to be intentional about how I spend my time. I come to the Philippines 4 times a year, make sure I visit my parents. They're 80 and 72. Things like that. Like, I need to spend time with my parents. I don't know how many more years, they have. So like now when I'm in the US, I need to spend time with my son because in 2 years he's going to college, right? So that's how my brain works nowadays, right? Like I have 2 years with my son. I only need to travel when it's really absolutely necessary. Yeah. So things like that, like my value system really drives the decisions that I make and how I spend my time.
Such an amazing amount of time in your career, but also you've filled that with so many experiences. Like you just reading your LinkedIn profile, you have such a diverse set of interests and 5 podcasts, and you have so many projects and businesses that you've led. I'd be interested to know how your perception of what leadership is has changed since, say, you're a teenager watching your parents lead and run businesses compared to 50-year-old Aya who has a different perspective and set of experiences. What you believe leadership to be changed during that time?
From when I started and now,
Yeah.
there's a reason why I'm such a hustler, because I come from a family of very smart people. They're all like valedictorian, like they're all smart, right? They're all book smart. I didn't know the capitals and like current events. So an aunt once told me that, oh, I got into one of the top schools in the US, Columbia University in architecture. And my aunt was like, "Oh, I didn't know she was smart." And I was like, like as a child, I wasn't the smartest, right? They would judge you based on your, if you got
Achievement.
A's or, things like that. But I wasn't like that. So early years, I just wanted to prove to everyone that I was smart and worthy, like a Filipina child. Like in the Philippines, we tie our worth to our accomplishments, our grades. So before, that's why I would work double, triple time. I'm like such a hard worker because I was just trying to prove my worth. But now that I'm older, like as soon as I turned 40, like in my 40s and 50s, I didn't think I needed to prove myself anymore, right? And so now the goal was really to be like a boss that is empathetic, right? Like we spend 80% of our time or our lives at work, or 70, I don't know, right? So how do you lead and have intention and have purpose in your business, right? Because if your purpose is just money, then you won't go a long way, right? So my purpose right now during COVID, I was able to help a mom who had 5 kids, and she's the breadwinner of the family. She was gonna quit architecture because she was giving birth to her 5th child. So I told her, and I don't like to sell, guys. we're shy. I don't sell. I have
Yep.
somebody who does sales for me. I reached out to her on Facebook and I said, hey, you don't have to quit your job because her husband was a mechanic and didn't really make a lot of money. I said, I help you before you give birth. And if you like it, then just don't quit because
Yeah.
like
Yep.
right, this was during COVID. So the things that I'm doing, right, like first of all, I'm helping during COVID. I was able to help moms, solopreneurs still continue their businesses. And now like I'm supporting over 60 architects, and my first employee is still with me, 15 years with me, right? So they have families, they've gotten married, they've had kids. For me, that's such a win that I get to help my employees thrive. A lot
Yeah.
of them travel international now. Like, who would have thought, right? So, and also at the same time in the US, I know, helping moms, helping entrepreneurs have more profitable businesses because architects don't know how to make money. I mean, we're a lot of architects are creatives. They think that having a client is like a blessing and like a hobby. No, we need to make money. So, helping the firm owners. So even though I started working with big companies, I've also started working with mom and pops, solopreneurs, like, people who have side gigs, moms who have 5 kids, things like that. So now that's the purpose, right? It's more meaningful right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very inspiring to hear that, Aya, what you've gone through. But I'm curious to know, was there a specific moment where it led you from trying to prove people your worth or prove family your worth to now?
My friend is an author, and she gave me this book last year called Patterns That Remain, healing for, like immigrant children. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so us. Filipinos are like, you're not worthy if you don't have good grades. Da, da, da. I read that book and it really healed me. Like, I just read it last year.
Ah,
And that
okay.
book was like, oh, I'm worth it. I don't need to prove anything. And my husband, who's American, I think healed me because, I didn't need to be like, to get straight A's. He just accepted me for who I was. So I
Yeah.
realized to stop proving and chasing things and just be happy because at the end of the day, it's really, we have to live with ourselves, right? And the things that we think about that those people are judging me, they're
Yeah.
probably not. They're too busy with their busy lives and their problems, right? So I'm like, oh, it's so liberating. This just happened last year.
I'm sure everybody else would. I mentioned that, oh, we all can so relate to that story. Like it's
I
every
know. It's
Filipino.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
And
is.
so like so my family, a lot of them don't know what I do. I'm very low key, so I come home and people were like, "Oh, she's retired. Must be nice.
Oh,
She's always on vacation."
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
meanwhile, like I opened my office and my dad was like, "Invite all your aunts and uncles." And they're like, "Oh, she has a job, like she's running a real company."
Mm.
It's just like that, but I'm over it. Like that's all
Mm-hmm.
like so, 20 years ago. I just want right now my goal is really to show my kids and especially my 19-year-old daughter who just went to college that it
Yeah.
is possible to become successful, to be a mom, to really live in the world like a male dominated profession. You just have to work hard and just, you know, kind of block the noise, just have a really strong mindset because I have employees in the US, like some white guys, and we go on business trips, and some clients don't even talk to me. They're like, even though I'm the boss, things like
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yeah.
But my dad said it's okay to be underestimated.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
Yeah.
work hard and just do your thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That I think part of that seems to me to be, and I mean, I don't have this direct experience, but it seems to me that women are often underestimated. We want to ask you a few questions about that shortly because I think it's something that I have a feeling that you have a completely new paradigm for a lot of up and coming female leaders out there. But I also think that there's a compliment there for you in the criticism, in that I think we are taught in school that work has to be hard and we need to be serious and all bound up and like, like, don't talk to me, I'm working. In the lead up to this, I've watched videos of yours, listened to podcasts, obviously you've spoken to Danielle, and even just the way you talk about business, your whole energy lights up and you've got this
Yeah.
excitement and this enthusiasm and this joy. And yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that people don't expect that you're a CEO because the archetype in our brain of a CEO is someone who is serious and, very corporate, and they mean business and no time for small talk and chit chat.
Salesy.
We don't, that's it. We don't smile, we work. You have this beautiful fusion of everything where I feel like there's just one Aya who your kids get the pleasure of having as their mum, your clients get the pleasure of having your team. Like, it just seems like you've got this beautiful mix of who you are, and it's just expressed through all your projects.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The old me would say, "Oh no," but now I will receive. Thank you.
Own it.
Yeah. And I have an interesting story when I started, and I mean, is it okay if I share, like, when I started my outsourcing business, my company was called MG Shlachter because I didn't want people to know that the owner of the firm was Filipina.
Oh.
Oh.
Because,
Okay.
like, in these big companies, like, I was working in retail, right? And so I was a supplier of big documentation for bigger companies. And if I named the company like my name and they saw who I was, I'm barely 5 feet, Michael. And 20 years ago, I looked really young, and so,
We're the
like, I
same
was
height,
afraid.
Aya, don't worry.
Yeah. And so one time I started working with Michael Kors, and I only knew 3 people there, but the CEO and the COO and everybody knew that we've done like 3 or 4 thousand, stores. So I went to New York to meet them. I knew 3 people, and so I met and hang out with my 3 people, and then the 3 people were like, "Oh, the CEO wants to meet you. The CEO wants to meet you. Accounting wants to meet you." Da, da, da. Da. So they all came down, and they're looking for a white man, right? They're looking, and then they see me. I'm like, "She's Aya." I'm like, "Who is she?" MG Schlochter. And they're
Oh,
looking
wow.
down. I'm like, "You're MG Schlochter." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." Meanwhile, I changed the company name to MGS Global Group because Schlochter is just so difficult. Started like showing I didn't want to show my face because I was too embarrassed to be Filipina and Asian, and but then as soon as I became authentic and just showed people who I was, actually a lot of my clients really resonated with me and wanted to work with me. That's how we grew from, like, I only had 10 employees back then. Now we're up to 60 because I showed my face on camera, and I until now I don't like hearing myself on podcasts, or when I see my reels I cringe. It's like, you know. But that's the thing, like, Bad Bunny, right? Like, he just had
Yeah.
the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, he was authentic. He will speak Spanish, and his album is in Spanish because he's just authentic and true to himself. So that's how right now I'm living my life, right? I giggle, and, like, sometimes I've run on sentences in podcasts, whatever. It doesn't matter. People buy from people. So yeah, just show your face. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting a feeling that this message that you're sharing is very refreshing, but I have a feeling culturally that's a challenging one for Filipinos who are told to be a certain way, whether that's be more corporate, be more Western, or even just, work hard and study and don't take too much risk. Was it your parents and the example they set that gave you the braveness to step out and back yourself? Or were there other influences or mentors that you've had in life that have given you that confidence to back yourself?
I'm one of like 25 grandkids, right? And
Wow.
there's only 3 women out of the 25, or 4 out of 25. And whenever I was in my lolo, my grandfather's room, he'll always say, "There's room at the top. There's room at the top." That's always what he said, and that's stuck in my head, that there's room at the top.
Wow.
So that's why I'm like, that's what happens in my brain is like, what did my grandfather say? Even when I was in the US and getting through adversity, and people doing, like, there were times when some of my colleagues didn't, trust me, or didn't like that I was their boss. Normally, when I work in bigger firms, the firm owners recognize my talent, and they really help me. I become like the project manager of, like, I was 21 or 23. I was already leading a team of 5, and the oldest guy was 43. He was taking orders from a 23-year-old. So things like that. And I just remember what my grandfather said, there's room at the top. I guess I have a high tolerance for pain too. I'm a triathlete. So
Yeah.
I'm a long
Ah.
distance runner and triathlete. So before, like, I just keep on going, right? It's like, I don't know. Is that a bad thing?
No, I think it's consistent with like you find this way to make things fun, and that includes
Yeah.
struggle and pain. So if that
Yeah.
it's like an ice bath, if you can start enjoying the ice bath, well, all of a sudden it's not painful anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's
Yeah.
crazy. I've been very blessed with my bosses. When they see me, they recognize, all my former bosses recognize that I was good architect. And so I've been lucky in life in general when it comes to people. Most of my bosses were very kind, and then I hired my COO. He was first my business development consultant. He said, "You need to change your profile because in LinkedIn, I didn't have a photo. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
even put that I went to Columbia University because in the Philippines, you need to be modest. You don't brag." He's like, "You need
Mm-hmm.
to get a photo, a cute picture of you and put everything there." I'm like, "That's
Mm-hmm.
bragging, isn't it?" He's like,
Mm-hmm.
"No, you're an entrepreneur. You need." So he pushed me to
To
kind of.
build your branding.
Put yourself
Yes,
out there. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
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 So I think that's important. That's one of the things I'm going to teach at the Aya Alliance, really, for women entrepreneurs who are shy, who don't want to show their face. And in the age of AI, it's more than ever. You need to have personal story and your personal brand.
Let's talk about the IRA Alliance because you've mentioned that a couple of times. It seems that you're at a stage of your career where it's really important for you to give back. So tell us more about the purpose of the IRA Alliance, and I'd love to know what is it that's given you this drive to not just build cool things, but to pay it forward and to empower others.
I have a lot of friends who are getting divorced and in the US, or like are really struggling, but they can't leave their partners because they don't have money. And money is power, and money gives you the freedom to do, you know, what you can't do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are people in general in the Philippines who can't leave. Obviously, there's no divorce in the Philippines, but even in
Mm-hmm.
the US, right? Like if you have money, you have the freedom to do whatever you want. It's also nice that I can pay for my own stuff, right? So that's what I want to share my experience, especially in the US when things are getting really expensive, and running a business is not like a lot of architects think their business is just a hobby,
Mm,
and it's feast or famine. There's no continuous pipeline. So that's the thing. I want people to look forward to their future, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, right, people start their firms because they want to have freedom of time. But at the end of the day, they're tied to their computers 24/7. So what
Yeah.
is the quality of your life, right? They're like, "I'm an entrepreneur. I want to go on vacation." But no, you
mm,
can't. You go on vacation, you still have your laptop.
mm,
That was me
Yeah.
before. Like I went to Hong Kong
Mm-hmm.
one time with my family, and I had with my daughter. I had to go back to the hotel room because I had to do my production, because it was a Saturday.
mm,
Things like that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I never want an entrepreneur to leave their kid in Ocean Park to finish a freaking
Mm-hmm.
CAD drawing. So that's what I want. It's like when you own a business, you need to know how to prioritize your time, yourself, and boundaries.
mm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
learned it the hard way. So that's what I want to share with the community. I'm excited about it. So yeah, that's the new thing.
I'm just going to think, I'm just going to, I've got a couple of questions, but I just want to kind of merge them into one.
Yeah.
I want to talk, Aya, about the opportunities available to people in the Philippines from a leadership
Yeah.
perspective. Obviously, this global world we live in has opened so many doors to Asia and particularly the Philippines. And I don't know, it's something that Maria and I talk a lot about on air, off air, but there's this kind of beautiful combination of opportunities to learn new things from the Western world of business and the global world of business and to bring that in. But I also think that there is some innate advantages, strengths that the Filipino people have that they could be bringing to the global world. And it's not about being something you're not as much as leveraging exactly who you are and the
Mm-hmm.
type of person that you probably already are. So I suppose the question I wanted to ask is really how have the opportunities available to Filipinos and Filipinas changed throughout your career, and what excites you about those opportunities? How do you feel a Filipino or Filipina should navigate their leadership journey to capitalize on what they're great at, but also bring in new ideas to sharpen their tools?
I think Filipinas have to be proud of their culture, and also their accomplishments and their value system and their hard work. Because right now I'm part of an entrepreneur group. Almost everyone has a Filipina VA. right? And I talk to content creators. Their back office is in the Philippines. One of these ladies I follow, she's like an influencer, community builder. I found her. She's in Dubai with the yachts and all that. And then one day she's in Siargao meeting her team. Her team is her CEO, COO is Filipino. The content team is Filipino. They're all hanging out in Siargao. I mean, isn't that amazing? And she's this girl in Dubai and hanging out with Ken Honda and all these major players. And they're so proud to have a Filipino team, right? Like Tim Ferriss had a Filipino team as well, I think. Like all these major players, and the Philippines is known globally as, as that, like back office support. And so I think I'm super proud that I'm Filipino and that people know us globally. Have you heard of the term Filipino baiting?
No.
So Filipino baiting is a term where content creators some just talk about Filipinos because they get followers because
Yeah.
like Filipinos were making waves globally, which is a good thing. And I'm super proud. Marilyn Mondehar of the Filipina Women Network is going to be so proud that we're no longer made to order brides. We're musicians. We help support global businesses. We're entrepreneurs. We're nurses. We're doctors. We're
Yes.
caregivers. We're not just there to marry some, right? That too, but
But
in
your
the
value
global
is a lot
world,
more than that.
Yeah,
Your
a lot more
potential
than
is a
right?
lot
So
more than that.
we've evolved. The Filipino identity has evolved. So many artists, right? Even in New York City now, you'll see more Filipino restaurants. Before it was Thai restaurants, Vietnamese restaurants. Now more Filipino places. Ube is a big thing now, next to matcha. Like,
Oh,
hey,
wow.
Filipino, right? Like ube latte. So
Yeah.
Philippines is really positioned one of the top places where people really get talent because our work ethic, our kindness, authenticity, and just like a culture of giving, right? Like every person that I met, oh, I love my Filipina VA. She's like, she works so fast. She works, like she will go out of their way to do the things. So yeah, I'm super proud to be a Filipina in right now in 2026.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
brand Philippines is stronger than ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of flip that question a little bit. What are some of the parts of that parts of, I suppose, Filipino culture, growing up in the Philippines, upbringing, these types of things that you think may work against the success of upcoming leaders? And really what I'm saying here is not to use these as things that hold you back, but to be aware of them so you can overcome them.
I think one of the things is like the boundaries issues. Like a lot of Filipinos will just overpromise, and I've tried to tell my team if the client wants the deadline by tomorrow and you can't do it, you gotta push back. Sometimes they'll just say okay, right? I'm like, no, you need to have boundaries. You need to push back because that's gonna backfire for the company because
Yep.
so things like that. Just having boundaries and just being more transparent and having a voice, right? And being able to ask the questions. The older, Filipinos don't ask questions. They're too shy. No such thing as a stupid question. So things like that, you got to change the culture as well. It's hard because we work in a very high, stress project delivery model in the States where everything has to be moved faster, right? So really pushing back and also not really having boundaries really, because for me, my team is very important. I don't want them to get sick. I don't want them to
Yep.
I've fired clients because they're not nice to my team members, two or three already, right? Like these people have been with me 15 years. I'm not going to let that client just talk to them like that or,
Yeah.
have them work on a holiday, right? No. So things like that.
I find this interesting because these are all things that you've said throughout the episode as things that you've had to work on and learn and to overcome as well. So it's great that you're not just saying that people should do that, but you're a great example of doing that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, my boss was an asshole to me, right? Like that's why I never want to be like that. Like, like imagine 36 hours and he didn't
Yeah.
even say bless you. He just said, don't get
Just-
the drawings
yeah.
dirty. Like, really?
Yeah.
The drawings over you. Oh my
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Not your people. That guy's not
Yeah.
your
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
And I'm just so proud of you. Like
Thank
I
you.
could not wait for the opportunity to meet you personally. I think it would be a Federer moment for me if I meet you. I've been listening to your podcast, and one of the podcasts about, I think that's your Her Space
Yeah, her
series,
space.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is so full of sorts of women and female leaders, and it's just very inspiring as well. And it's like, I don't know, I think I'm just gonna brag about you, Aya, put it that way. In our Filipino community, in our
Thanks.
Filipina, Cebuana community, I'm just gonna
Cebuana,
brag. Yeah,
Cebuana.
Cebuana. Yeah,
Proud,
but
proud Cebuana.
exactly. And but I'm curious, like if your daughter, perhaps, for Filipina leaders of the future are listening, and for sure they are, because they would be so interested about you. What leadership lesson would you want them to carry for life?
Know your value and live by your values, because you can't really fake it. Like, like, this is why I have a business, right? Like, it's not just to make money, but also to provide. And my dad always taught me, like, generosity is the key to success. If you live your life with a closed fist, you can never receive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you open your hand to give, you will always receive. That's what's stuck in my head all
Oh,
the
I
time.
love that.
So what is your value system? And you need to value that. If you value fancy cars and all, that's fine. You do that if that's your value system, right? So be authentic, live by your value system, authentically, because life will be so difficult if you don't do that. I'm not into find your passion. No, no, no. Live your values and value yourself, because
Yeah.
it's as a woman, it's so hard to we're people pleasers. I still am, right?
Mm.
Especially as
Mm-hmm.
a mom, as a Filipina wife to an
Mm-hmm.
American, you're always trying
Mm-hmm.
to people please and do the things, but you need to value yourself too.
Yeah.
Self-care.
Yeah. I love that. And
Yeah.
something that a lot of Filipinos will surely have to learn a lot from you. I tell you
Yeah.
that.
Oh, I'm still learning, girl.
Oh, love it.
I'm super Filipina. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's part of why we started this podcast, was to show to all sorts of people that, like, no one really has it all figured out. We're all figuring this out as we go. And I think even just hearing you say, I'm still working on it, or I still struggle with this, it just gives everyone permission to feel okay about their own
Yeah.
struggles, because it makes people realize they're not broken, that this is just what it is to be a
Yeah.
human, right?
Absolutely. Every day is a struggle. Always, as an entrepreneur.
Mm.
That's what you
Yeah.
signed up for.
Yeah. But I won't change anything. Even all the mistakes and all the things. It's been an amazing journey. Yeah.
Well, we are so grateful that you've shared this part of your journey with us, even just for an hour and a bit. It's been so incredible to highlight some of your story with our audience, but also just to be able to ask you the types of questions that we want to find out
Yeah.
about as well. We finish our interviews with, we call them our quick climb questions. We have 6 questions here that we ask every guest. And the idea is to just give the instant answer, just a really quick first thing
Uh-oh.
that comes into your head. Don't overthink it. We just want what's at the tip of your tongue when we ask you these questions. So are you up for strapping yourself in for some quick climb questions?
Sure. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah.
Brilliant. First one, what is a big mistake that you've made as a leader at any point, and what did you learn from it?
Putting all my eggs in one basket and not diversifying, for
Gotcha.
sure. Yeah.
Which explains the starting multiple businesses during the economic downturn. You were
Yeah.
seeing which one flew.
And the ideas after giving birth.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Second question. What's a surprisingly simple leadership tip that actually works?
Humility. Because if you're not humble enough, you don't know, you can't learn or grow. So yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is a skill that you are trying to get better at, even if you're still figuring it out?
Delegating. Still.
So many would agree to that.
Yeah.
And if you could give one piece of leadership advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Nothing. All the mistakes or is why I am here today, right? It's weird, right? Yeah, if I had to say to my younger self to do this, I wouldn't be here. All the mistakes is what led me here. It's like the stoicism that,
Yeah.
like, everything that happens to you, even your mistakes, it's called divine providence, right? I'm not religious, but it's divine providence. All your mistakes and the people that are around you happens for a reason.
Yeah, like if you change, it's that idea of like sliding doors. Like if you change something when you were younger, you may not be with us today. So it's like you're here, and that's beautiful. And so everything's happened for the
And
reason.
everything is not perfect, imperfect, mistakes.
I think that's my favorite answer to that question.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love it. Yeah.
You've set the bar very high for that one.
Oh my.
This is one of my favorite questions. What is your must-read book or must-read books for up-and-coming leaders? What are like that you absolutely must read these books?
High output management, because he is, I think, the Microsoft guy or like Intel, because he runs his company like a manufacturing plant. Everybody is important in the machine, the janitor, the custodian, the electrician. So we all have to work together. And that's one of my favorite books in terms of entrepreneurship. It's a very old book, but it works because everybody is valued no matter what you do. Because if there's no toilet paper in the bathroom, that's a problem, right? So yeah, high output management.
Okay. I haven't heard of that one, but I will be buying that tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check it out too. Love it. Thank
It's so old. I love it though.
Yeah.
you. Okay. And for the final question, and I'm for sure, as you know, Aya, karaoke in our Filipino life is always part.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter if there's an actual celebration, it's just part of our system. So the question is, what's your go-to karaoke song?
It's Too Late by Carole King.
Can you give us a
Oh,
line?
yes.
No, I need a shot of vodka right now. I like songs of unrequited love because that's my voice. Like my genre is like, I sing a lot of karaoke and yeah. I actually do have a song.
Yeah.
That song.
That is such a great song. I got goosebumps when you said that. Yeah.
It's so sad, but yeah, it's a great song, Carole
Yeah.
King. Yeah.
Carole King has one of those voices too that kind of her emotion cuts through and it really gets you.
Yeah.
She's not
yeah.
performing, she's expressing. Like she's a special woman, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great one. I'm going to add that to my karaoke list because
You're coming here soon.
But I need to start a karaoke list because every time I hear a song, I'm like, oh, that's a good karaoke song. And then I get to karaoke at the Ayala Center with my 5 elk pals and I get the book and I just go, what do I do? Where do I start? So
Yeah, you need to have a curated list.
yeah,
True.
there you go. Well, I'm going to start with that. Maria, when I'm at karaoke with you in a couple of weeks' time, line up Carole King. It's too late.
Okay, I'll put that on the list. Okay. Well, I think that's it. Like, I know you're gonna jump off soon, but really thank you. Like, I don't know, this is just one of the biggest, proudest moment I would say that I have in the entire podcast time because you're a Filipina. There's so many things that you are so passionate about that many Filipinos do not even see that they could also do that. And, a lot of Filipinos always tend to, we're happy people, yes, but sometimes we tend to just reserve ourselves. So I really thank you for sharing your story, sharing your passion. It's just very infectious. I'm going to get out of this, feeling very inspired. So really thank you for this opportunity and I can't wait to meet you. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, Michael and Maria.
It's so nice to meet you, Aya. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Asenso Tayo Leaders. If something landed with you today, don't just keep it in your head. Make sure you try it. Kaya mo yan. Asenso Tayo Leaders is brought to you by 5 Elk, a team who helps great businesses build great offshore teams. If you're curious about what we do or what it's like to work with us, you'll find everything you need at 5elk.com. And if you're leading people, but want to find ways to do it better, make sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or your podcast platform of choice, so you're the first to know when we release a new episode. Remember, you're not meant to have it all worked out. Just keep taking the next step. Asenso tayo!